So this is from the Warlock storyline, which is kind of a weird one. Another weird one. There's a bunch of weird stories. They're like, who's that writer? Richard Matheson. You know who that is? Richard Matheson. It reminds me of Richard Matheson. Anyway, so this is called one of the Warlock stories. This is from the second book in the Exit 13 series. The Warlock. Craig pushed open the door, and the strong stench of incense almost choked him. Somewhere in the back of the shop, an electronic chime sounded. Craig stopped for a moment to look over a Bob Marley t-shirt as he let his olfactory senses acclimate to the sweet stench of the store. A young blonde girl with dreadlocks pushed through the beaded curtain to welcome Craig to the head shop. "Welcome to White Magic," she said. "How can I help you?" Craig took out his brand new smartphone and he walked over to the counter. He could feel the girl's eyes on his expensive clothing as he searched in his phone for the photographs he needed. Finding the photos, he turned his phone around so that she could see the screen. "I'm looking for old dolls that are 26 inches tall and probably wrapped in yarn. I'm willing to buy as many as you have," Craig told her as she studied the pictures. "No," she said, shaking her head as Craig heard someone moving around behind the beaded curtain. "I've never seen anything like that." "Is that your boss in the back?" Craig asked, pulling his phone away from the girl's face. "Yeah, Hannah," the girl yelled and took a step back and went about lighting a cigarette. "Yeah," the older brunette responded as she pushed through the curtain. Craig looked up as she entered and immediately noticed the scar on her face, a straight line beginning at her forehead and ending on the left eyebrow. The scar began at her cheekbone and extended another inch or two down her face. Craig's mind flashed back to the night in the old lady's house. He had shoved his knife into the yarn of one of the dolls to cut it away, but when he unwrapped the doll, he had damaged the face, leaving a mark eerily similar to the scar on Hannah's face. Hannah noticed him, staring at her scar, and the corners of her mouth turned down briefly in contempt. Craig felt a little embarrassed and looked down at his phone as he walked along the counter closer to Hannah. Again, he held out his phone to show the photos to Hannah. Looking only for a second, her eyes snapped to meet Craig's as he saw her breathing change. She glanced at the blonde girl quickly, and Craig decided that Hannah looked frightened after seeing the photo. Withdrawing the phone, he locked it and put it back in his pocket. "Jesse," she said to the blonde, "that box underneath that stack of books near the filing cabinet, could you bring that to me?" "Sure," Jesse replied, pushing through the curtain and into the back. Hannah looked at Craig nervously, carefully looking over his clothing and features. Craig smiled politely, confused about why she was so nervous. "What do you want?" she finally asked. Just, Craig stumbled mentally, confused by her phrasing. Just want to buy any and all dolls you have like that." Hannah seemed doubtful that he was telling the truth. In the back, Craig could hear the sound of books being tossed on the floor. Craig shifted his weight in discomfort, averting his eyes from Hannah, who was now staring at him. "That's it?" she asked, clearing her throat afterwards. "Yeah, I just want to buy something, okay?" "Okay," she responded apprehensively. "You all right?" he asked of Hannah as Jessie returned with an old wooden box which she placed on the counter. "Fine," Hannah answered, shaking her head. Sliding the box closer, Hannah unlocked the two latches of the wooden box and opened it. Craig smiled wide as he looked at the doll wrapped in yarn lying in the box. "This is what you're looking for," Hannah stated. "Yes, is this the only one you got?" Craig asked. "Yep," Hannah answered. "How much do you want for it?" Craig said, pulling out his wallet and opening it to expose several $100 bills that he had inside. Jessie gasped a little and smiled wide at Craig. Craig thumbed the bills, waiting on Hannah to quote a price. However, Jessie interrupted the negotiation. "Are you rich?" she asked. "Not really," Craig said politely. "I just recently found some old comic books and sold them for a small fortune in Baltimore. I had no idea people would pay that much for them." "So now you buy old dolls?" Jessie asked with mild confusion. "Well, yeah, it's a long story," Craig said. "I bet," Hannah joined the conversation. "I'll give you this doll on one condition. You take this doll and never come back here." Craig and Jessie both gave Hannah a confused look. Jessie's mouth opened wide as she had never heard Hannah ever say something that rude. Craig figured that Hannah didn't like him because he caught him staring at her scar. "That's not a problem," Craig said after a short pause. "I'm not into reggae or incense or drawing pot leaves on notebooks, but I should pay you something for this." "I don't want your money," Hannah scowled. "Just take it and go." Craig put his wallet back in his pocket and looked over both girls one more time. Lifting lifting the yarn-covered doll out of the box and tucking it under his arm. Craig smiled and turned to walk away, wondering if he should say something more. Looking back at the girls as he opened the door to the shop, he nodded and smiled again. "Thank you," he said, looking directly at Hannah. The scowl remained on her face as he walked out the door and headed towards his car. Walking across the street, Craig glanced back at Hannah and Jesse through the window of the store and saw them having some sort of heated discussion. Craig popped the trunk of his car and placed the doll inside. Craig's toolbox was also in the trunk, and he opened it to pull out his box cutter. Extending the blade with his thumb, he thought about Hannah's scar and carefully started cutting the yarn wound tightly around the doll. A few strands at a time, Craig slowly and gingerly unwrapped the doll, and after clearing away all the yarn stuck to the doll, he unceremoniously tossed the doll on top of the yarn scraps in the trunk. Closing it, he changed his traffic. He checked the traffic coming from behind and saw that it was clear. Producing his keys again, he walked to the driver's side of his car and got inside. Craig started the car and headed for home.